Good afternoon, everyone. I kind of brought him on straight away because I am so disorientated right now because I'm writing my book. My wrists are completely battered. And yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing at the minute. So anyway, no surprises. He's here. He's going to introduce himself. He is Joel Collin-Demers. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Sue. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to be able to come on the Data Den. And
yes.
I want to commend you on your performance at the opening here.
Oh, thank you. Special accolade there. Yeah, so why don't you let everybody know a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Joel Collin-Demers, as you mentioned. You didn't butcher the name, which is awesome, because it often gets some funny spellings or funny pronunciations. But anyway,
I should have showed off a little bit with my Joel.
Yeah, that's right.
I could have done that, and I didn't. I missed an opportunity there.
Well, we've got an hour, so I'm sure you'll be able to put it.
Squeeze it in again.
Yeah. So to answer your question, based out of Montreal, Canada. And hold a consulting principal position within procurement. And I say that as if it's a big company, but it's just myself, right? It's a solo consulting firm. And what I do is provide strategic consulting services to a bunch of different clients in different industries around optimizing and modernizing and digitizing their procure-to-pay application landscape. So whether it be an ERP system, whether it be source-to-pay systems, or looking at more pure play solutions that can come and solve a specific problem, it's all about building that technology roadmap with a client and helping them through the implementation of each of the pieces and making sure that everything jives together.
I bet you see a lot of dirty data then.
A lot of what? Sorry?
Dirty data.
A lot of dirty data, for sure. I mean, supplier data is the foundation of it all, and I don't think I've been in one company where they say, we have great supplier data and great supplier processes, because as soon as you put it in the system, it starts degrading, right? Because if you don't have a way to follow suppliers and their mergers and acquisitions and their change of addresses and all that good stuff, then your data gets outdated pretty quickly.
Yeah. So what are the biggest challenges that you face when you're working with a client? Do you see a pattern or trend in the kind of problems that they all have?
Well, they all have very specific problems to their industry or their specific business most of the time, which is why you need kind of a tailored approach for each client. But there are a lot of things that are similar. The main one being that I find, as procurement professionals in a procurement department, a lot of the expertise that you've developed over your career is around the procurement processes, right? And the procurement function and dealing with suppliers and negotiating contracts and then doing the operational side of things and dealing with purchase orders and goods receipts and AP and the invoices and all that good stuff. But organizations haven't put a lot of investment in developing the IT skills of their procurement practitioners, right? So when comes time to put an architecture together or to start discussing systems and how everything's going to fit together to get the best overall result for the firm, for the company, that's when we're starting from a very low maturity standpoint, right? Which is normal, right? It's not something that's a big focus, but I feel like it's something that needs to become a focus for 21st century organizations, right? And not just in procurement, but across the board. Like if you have a sales organization, a production organization, folks need to get a digital and IT literacy to be able to combine that with their deep expertise in their functional area.
Yeah. And how long have you had your business?
Going on 2 years now. So I was at IBM Canada for just over 7 years. And there at the end was leading the source to pay implementation practice. I decided to go out on my own and try a few things that I wanted to try from an entrepreneurial perspective, and coming up on 2 years. And so far it's flown by. It's been great.
Brilliant. And so how has your last year been then?
COVID has, the only thing that it really changed for me was the fact of working from home 100% of the time. Yeah. So there was some working from home before then, but a lot of going on client sites and having those client relationships. But luckily I wasn't too affected by the whole crazy year that we've had. And on the flip side, on the personal side of things, it's allowed me to have a bit more time with the young ones. I have a 2-year-old and a 8-week-old. So
I know that's like, well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me when you've got an 8-week-old, because I'm sure that's not easy.
Oh, it's not easy, but it's got its challenges, but it's easy in the sense that if you go in, eyes wide open and going in, having fun with the challenge, then and then just the experience of it, then it's a good time for sure. And it's my pleasure. I can't say no to you, Sue. I gotta come on when you.
Yeah. Also, I guess if you're both at home, then it kind of lightens the load a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's been, that's the tricky part, right? Is making sure that I still have a distinction of a room, a place in the house, and times where I'm working, and I need to go into deep work, and have a couple hours where you're in deep thought and trying to get into a flow state, right? But during lunchtime, or if there's somebody at the door or things like that, then you can step in and help with the young one. So.
Wow, well,
it's been a gift in that sense.
So I hear you have a special topic that we can chat about today.
Yeah, sure. Because when we were discussing getting together, like I do a lot of different things, articles, podcasts, etc., and they're always on what we just kind of touched on, which is procurement strategy, system strategy, implementation, how to approach it, how to think about it. But since it's the data den and you do things a little bit differently, I thought we could discuss a topic which I've never discussed on any show, which is more the personal data side of things.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, personal data is a bit of a minefield. I think people are even scared to kind of open the lid and see what's underneath.
Yeah, unless not really sensitive personal data, but how do you collect and manage data in your personal life to help you achieve your objectives or, approach your goals, that sort of thing?
Oh my goodness. I don't even think I do that.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an anomaly in that front, I think, right? Because
as we go like through that. And Larry's watching, and I bet you he does that as well. I can see Larry, personal data collector.
So I could give you an example, right? So if I put out certain objectives at the beginning of the year, like things that I want to accomplish from a personal perspective, and it bleeds into professional life as well. But I really like the OKR system, which is objectives and key results, which is something that's used a lot in the startup world for employee goals.
Yeah.
Right. But I use that and I transfer it over to the personal side and I say, okay, what are the different objectives I have in the different spheres of my life or the different roles, right? So as a dad, as an athlete, and I do that with big air quotation marks, as a father, as a son to my parents, as a friend to my friends, etc. Like, what are the different roles I have in my life and what are the different objectives that I have within that, right? And what are the key results or the key things that I can measure that would allow me to meet that objective during the year, right? So if I say,
wow,
as a dad, one of the things that I want to ensure I do is at least spend 1 hour of quality time uninterrupted with my kids a day. Well, how can you, so that's an objective. It's very high level. It's very abstract. What key measures can I use to measure myself and tell myself I've met that objective, right? So for me, that specific one, it's making sure that it's an hour a day, that there's no phone, right? That my phone is somewhere else. And that, I'm engaged. We're doing something, an activity, a game, something. So that's how I measure it. And so if I had done that during that day, then I have this little application where I have all these things in it. And I say, I did that today.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I should definitely kind of try to do more of that. I guess I just my whole business, personal life just merges into one.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to separate it out a bit more now, so I really want to start I've just been chained to my desk with work and stuff for months and months and months. So now it's right, okay, I want to go out and walk with my friend every morning for an hour and do that kind of stuff. So I guess but I'm more of a kind of set them in my mind than have them on paper.
Yeah.
For some reason, if they're on paper, I'm less likely to do them.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Kate Strachney did a poll the other day, and that was on do you do like daily, weekly, monthly, or annual goals and objectives? And I was like, I don't really do any of those. Like the start of last year, I said I wanted to do like 2 podcasts and 1 speaking event, and that was like my goal for the year, and to make enough money to pay my bills. That was it. And there was not a book in that plan in January last year. That was not even a thought. There's certainly, so having a team was like a way in the future thing. So that happened quicker than expected. And I sometimes I feel like if I have goals, I feel like I stick to them and that's it. But if it's more flexible, then I'm open to more things. So I think maybe I do need to be a bit more structured, but not too structured, because that will restrict me. Yeah,
no, that's a great point, right? I think opportunities come knocking a whole bunch of different times in your life, and so I think it's you don't have to get too structured or too rigid in following the different goals, right? It can evolve, and I think that's the problem with yearly goal setting and what we've seen with larger organizations where they've moved away from that and gone to something more.
Yeah, well, planning is kind of hard right now, but Scott's on as well. He's not much of a planner either. I guess he's the male equivalent of me almost. We're very similar. I probably just really insulted him, but never mind.
But I found it's more. Hey Scott, by the way, hello. I found it's more the process that's important than the actual final result of like the goals and the measuring and all that.
Yeah, it's true.
It's the introspection, right? So coming back to it on a weekly basis, or like I'll take an hour a week where I go over different things and make sure that I'm spending spending my time on the things I want to be spending my time on, right? Because that's I find that's the key thing. And if you've got a process, whatever it is, then you're doing that on a regular basis. And so you can adjust and, I have this neat opportunity. Everything else is going to the side and I'm going to focus on that for the next little while. Or, it's having that process is the key to, for me, to living the best, best, most full life.
Okay. So what would your tips be for me to get started, or someone else that would like to be a little bit more structured?
I call it values-based intention setting. So at the top is who you want to be from a value perspective, right?
Wait, I see a book in this somewhere.
But potentially, I don't know, maybe. I think you're just in that mindset. Maybe it's just
I'm seeing them everywhere right now.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was, have a real hard thought. And as I said, it's not something that you set in stone and it's over, right? It's something that you revisit, and when it makes sense during that season of your life, it makes sense. And when it doesn't, you change it, right? But for me, it was identifying those core values that are important to me and making sure that, so like family, for freedom, having deep thought and creation periods in my time as well. And then looking at, okay, how am I actually spending my time? So, not necessarily measuring it with an app, because I know you can do that as well. And I found this really cool company that gives you like kind of a dice, and it has different icons on it, like an email, all the different tasks that you would typically do, like writing notes, etc. And then as you do different tasks, you flip it instead of having to log into an application and say start, stop, etc. And it just changes the task that you're doing, and it shows you how you're actually spending your time. So that's more on a task basis. But to get back to the values piece, I was looking at, for example, if I was in a management position and I was managing a team, a lot of my time was spent in hour blocks, right? So I was jumping from meeting to meeting, from topic to topic, and I never really had a deep, 3-4 hour blocks for deep thought, going into flow state and having deep creation periods. So that was something that I listed as a value of something that was very important to me, but I wasn't actually doing it on a day-to-day basis, right? So doing that exercise allowed me to identify that cognitive dissonance and say, okay, like am I chasing a title, or am I chasing something that, from a gut reaction purpose versus living purposefully, right? So I think that's the key piece, and asking yourselves questions around, what does the ideal life look like? What's my ideal week? What's my ideal month?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily, like, it's never going to happen that way, but just the thought exercise gives you these different hooks to grab onto.
Yeah, I'd be interested for anyone who's watching to let us know if you've got any kind of personal goals and things like that. Yeah, I need to get on that, really.
I've already got it's all in a Word document, because contrary to you, if I don't write it, it doesn't exist. I forget it the next day. Somebody asks me a question about it, I have no clue. So I'm terrible with personal stuff. Business stuff, it's all written down. It's like I've got sticky notes everywhere. I've got multiple pads of paper. My stuff, no, nothing. But I've even tried, like putting goals on the wall and stuff, and then eventually they become invisible, and I just don't see them anymore. But see, so you take the more opportunistic approach from the sounds of things, right? Like, can you talk about it a little bit, like for example, the book? How did that come up, and how did you integrate it into your schedule and into your life?
So it was about a year ago. I sat down and had a chat with someone, and I was like, oh, in the future, maybe I'd like to write a book. And I'd met a publisher at an event and was like, oh, okay. So then started to explore it. And I think it was more, not that I actually want to write a book, because I struggle to read. I forget the sentence as soon as I've read it. I'm not very good with that kind of stuff. But I just feel like if I don't get something out there now, someone else is going to do it badly. So I want to get like the right information out there. Scott is telling me to get Evernote. I think that's an order, not even a suggestion.
Yeah, no, but it's a good one, right? Like Evernote, or if Evernote is very powerful if you create a system to use it, right? Because otherwise it could just become a big mess of tabs and books and all this stuff that you've copy pasted into it. But it's very much now I forget the sides of the brain, right? But the very analytical side of the brain.
Well, I'm a lefty, so I don't know if that's got something to do with it. Yeah.
Right brain folks would love Evernote, because it allows you to categorize everything and tag everything and put structure and sometimes it's more fun just getting to structure than the actual content itself. You're going, oh, this structure is amazing.
Yeah. Do like a bit of categorization.
Exactly. Taxonomy, all that.
Yes.
But so you were saying for your book, it came up.
And then I talked to the publisher, and it was going to cost like just under like £10,000 to write the book and publish it and I was like, no, I don't have that money. So then I spoke to Caroline Carruthers, who was on last week with Peter Jackson. She was like, no, I'll put you in touch with my publisher. So I already had a book proposal kind of half drafted, so sent that over. He gave me their template. I basically built out the chapters, did a background. It went for peer review, and then they came back and said, "Yeah, let's do it." And then I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I thought I had an idea, but I didn't think anyone else would think it as well." And that's how it came about. So it's but taking opportunities when they come,
when they arise, and being very open with your ideas and your thoughts with others, it sounds, as well, right? Because it gives people those hooks to your point, say, no, I'll put you in touch with someone else to create that opportunity. Whereas if you had kept that idea bottled up in your head, you might not have.
No, I was asking Caroline because she had said that her book started through a series of blogs. So she was like, if you've got blogs, you've got a book. And, I'd done a few at that point. Now I've got millions of them. But, And actually, most of what's in the blogs is not even in the book. The book is a whole new thing. So it's going to be brand spanking new content. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and it's I find like, because I've thought about writing a book a couple times, and as we were discussing earlier, I think it's not necessarily the season of my life where it's the most I got the most time to do that. So I'll get to it eventually, but I find it's the challenge is finding that idea that you're ready to get committed to for a long while, right? Like it's not, is it?
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of those can fit into an article, right? But a book has to be something that you can dig into. And even when you're done, you tell yourself, I could probably write another one or keep going into the depths of.
I'm like, no more. Because this one's 50,000 words, and I was like, yeah, I got loads to talk about. I can talk, but actually the way you speak and the way you write are very different.
Yeah.
And so actually it was a real struggle at the start to get to even like 5,000 words. I thought I'd done 10 and I only had 5, and it was like, but then I don't know, just as the deadline approached, suddenly my brain got into gear and was like, right, focus in.
Yeah.
And it was me that set this deadline. I could have chosen a year to write it if I'd wanted, but I still probably would have left it to the last month to do it. So, but in my mind, the plan was do 500 words a day, and then that'll all add up. But of course, life doesn't really work like that. So, but I think if you do decide to do it, like set yourself a deadline and try and stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, I think I would phrase it, sit down and do 500 words of bad writing a day, right? Or just sit down and write 500 words, right? Whatever comes out that day, because certain days will have high energy, certain days low energy.
Yeah.
You'll throw out probably most of it on most days, or have to rework it, or it's just writing. Because I do a lot of articles, right? And writing is just it's a painful, self-flagellating process until you're happy.
And it's different for a book. It's just, I guess everything's bigger and longer, and you need to beef it up with a bit of this and a bit of that. But I would say absolutely go for it. And what kind of book would it be?
Well, the one I've seen, that the idea that I have that I haven't seen out there in the market is kind of I'll call it the source to pay Bible, right? Like how to approach. And I'm sort of, to your point, writing it, blog post by blog post, because to your point, like I see a lot of, I don't see a lot of source to pay content or how to approach your procurement system architecture content out there. And I get a lot of good feedback on the different posts that I do on a very specific niche topic or very specific piece of that. But the idea would be to get all of that together and
take it and own that space.
Or take the whole procurement value chain from sourcing and data gathering, spend data gathering, and then going towards contract management. How do I turn that into catalogs or material masters in an ERP system? How do I do the requesting, the approval, the purchasing, goods receipts, invoicing, and AP and payment? So covering that whole space, and even the business networks to transact with suppliers. So there's so much content and meat in there to cover. And I've been fortunate enough in my career to work on projects in all of those different spaces, right? So I have an opinion and a
probably a unique skill set as well.
So it's a matter of sitting down and doing it and hashing it out. But to your point, I think I'm doing it one blog post at a time, and eventually I'll take the leap at some point.
Yeah. Scott's got some Hemingway advice, which is write drunk and edit sober. I think that would not work for me.
I think the other thing is that I've heard is be kind to yourself on the day that you're writing, and be a complete dick to yourself the day after when you're editing, right? So the act of writing itself is very difficult, especially if you set yourself like a 500 word limit per day. So you just sit down. If you get it done, if you get 500 words, reward
Yeah.
yourself, right? Go out for ice cream that night, or do
Yeah.
what it is, like a small goal, a small reward. And then
Yeah.
the next day when you're looking at it, you're like, this is crap. Like, you got to start all this over.
I remember Daniel Barnes gave me some really good advice, because he writes like fiction, yeah.
Okay.
And he was like, just write it all and then edit it at the end. Don't edit as you're going. And that's been a really great tip, actually, because when you've had like weeks or days in between writing it, you suddenly have a clear perspective, like a more neutral, balanced perspective when you're reading it.
Absolutely.
Because you do get a bit close to it. But yeah, I started just by doing bits of each chapter. I didn't even write it methodically, like this is going to be chapter 1, and then 2, then 3, then 4.
Did you have a table of contents at the beginning? Like, did you have a whole...
Yeah, I had that all drafted out, yeah. So I knew what it was going to be.
So you built out the branches, and then you started populating the leaves sporadically.
Yeah, so that's what I needed to do to propose my book proposal for the publisher. So, and that was really great. I think it would have been all over the place otherwise. Yeah,
and hard to nail down, I guess.
But yeah, definitely go for it. And Daniel's also just had another wee one. So yeah, something in the air.
Daniel
Barnes.
Yeah. I congratulated him as well. I think we're
he's
in the same age bracket.
Yeah.
But I think I'm stopping at 2. I can't I think he's at 3 or 4 kids.
He's at 3. Yeah, that's.
I don't.
Zero's a good number for me. I'm good. I'm good with that. Like, someone else can have my quota. That's fine.
And I understand that. Like up to 2 is fine, because you're 2v2, right? You're two parents versus 2 kids.
So my friend, when she had her second, said you'd think it was double the work, but it's like triple or quadruple the work. It's not double the work.
I think you told me that before.
Yeah.
Got here, and I was like, why would you tell me that before my kid gets here?
Just saying. Yeah.
But no, he got here. I find it, it's a bit more work, because there is that, like, having to manage the crossfire. I'll describe it, right? But at the same time, I mean, it's been, at least for us, manageable, and
I guess actually as well, because you've got a 2-year-old as well.
Yeah.
So, although, is it a wee boy?
Girl. So 2-year-old girl and a boy. Yeah.
So I was 4 when my brother arrived, and I think having 4 years of just me and my parents was, I was really excited, because I really wanted a wee brother. I was really excited, and then they took me to the hospital when he was born. Apparently, like, I took one, looked at him, and walked away, like, turned my nose up in the air, and was like not impressed at all.
Did you keep the receipt?
Yeah. So 2 years, they'll not remember when they're older.
No, that's right. I find it's a good gap. But yeah, she's excited to have her little brother around, and I think more so as time goes on and he's able to react more, and I think it'll grow from there. But you do experience that little regression as well, where she had stopped doing certain things, and now, because he's in the picture now, like, she started doing them again. So, for example, carrying around a blanket, she wants a pacifier now as well, that she had stopped doing, and she wants the blanket that he has, like, that we're using for him. Like, she wants that one.
Yeah.
So, hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave. Hope you're well. Yeah. I guess that happens kind of for pretty much all parents in the beginning, but yeah. And then have you done any podcasts recently? So that's how we first kind of chatted. Yeah,
that's true.
When you podcast about a year ago nearly. I can't believe that. You were like one of the first ones that I
saw your guru-ness.
That was it. You were like, what's the word? You were an early adopter.
That's right. That's right. No, it's going well. Like, for a lot of the content, I think it's whether it be the articles or the podcasts, like, it's trying to get them out in a regular fashion. I did a podcast recently. I'm trying to do one a quarter this year, so that was my big objective. I think I might be able to do a couple more than that.
It's a lot more work than people
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you want it to be a good quality, right? Because anybody can record a conversation and then upload it as a podcast, but doing the intro, making sure that you're grabbing people's attention from the start and demonstrating the value that listening to the episode will bring is very important. And then editing different pieces that might not have provided as much value to the audience, or might just have been a bit flatter. So recently, to answer your question, put one out, I think at the end of February, with Embry Davis from Procurement IQ. It's a market intelligence firm. So they do like mostly for indirect, right? Like if you're sourcing a category for the first time, you can have access to this tool, and it gives you a bunch of reports around either different how the commodity is usually structured, how that market is structured, who the big players are, how do you usually have the pricing, what's the pricing structure for that commodity as well. And so it gives you a lot of context to engage with stakeholders as a buyer for, if it's the first time you're engaging with that commodity. And it gives you information as well to negotiate with suppliers. And if it's a first time that you're negotiating that commodity, it gives you that base. And if it's a contract renewal, for example, then you're able to see, okay, well, if they're trying to bump me up 5%, is this legitimate based on what I see in the rest of the industry for that commodity? Nice. So we kind of went over the best practices for research for a commodity that you would be negotiating or sourcing for the first time. And then looking at, from a process perspective, and then when you layer technology on top of that, what can you do afterwards, right? So that's usually the typical format that I'll use for my podcast is, let's look at a topic, let's break it down from a process perspective. How can I, as a business, optimize that process without any technology? And then once I've done that and I've maxed out what I can do, how can I layer technology on top of it to get to the next level, right? Yeah. And it's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis, right? So I see a lot of value in that exercise.
So are you seeing the kind of work that you do change, or are more people adopting the kind of work that you do now? Would you say there's been a shift?
Yeah, so it's the shift is very, or I think it's very market specific, right? So like depending on your geography, the maturity of procurement will be what it is, right? And you'll have to adapt to that. And then the technology literacy piece as well will also vary from geography to geography. But the thing that I see, the big trend that I see right now, at least in the procurement technology space, and I think it applies to most other functional areas, is the openness of systems, right? So typically, the last 10 years, maybe you would have had your ERP system and maybe a source to pay system as well, right? So you'd have an SAP, an Oracle, a JD Edwards in the back end, Microsoft Dynamics, and then you would layer on top an SAP Ariba, an Ivalua, a Coupa, Jagger, those source to pay solutions. And organizations didn't venture much out of that from a digital transformation perspective, unless there was a very specific need. Yeah. What I'm seeing is a lot of those technologies, as they're putting out their new releases in the last couple of years, there's been a big focus on connectivity, right? APIs, openness, and being able to extract the data from those systems. So they're kind of letting their walls down, and the access to the database be more open, because they're seeing that their competitors are doing that, and they were losing market share, right? So we're getting to a space where things are much more open, and so what that's doing is it's creating a third bucket, which is the pure play or the startups, the niche players that are focused on a very specific part of the process, right? So like a couple that I've come across over the last couple of years that I really enjoy are like Perangusa, where it's more around performance management, procurement performance management. Candex, which is really around like managing your long tail as a supplier, on a supplier network. Tealbook for supplier master data centralization, right? So there's all these really cool, really innovative, really specialized solutions that are coming to fill gaps that you have in that ERP source to pay duality. So the person or the persons that you have come in, whether it's a firm or someone like me that can, augment the capabilities of a firm or just give you a second opinion or even have a one-on-one discussion, is you want that person to have a good knowledge of not only, the two traditional pieces of ERP and source to pay, but what's going on in that third bucket and where are things going, right? Like, are we, from a contract management perspective, there's Syrian Labs that's doing some very cool stuff with AI. So
yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. For me, I stay in my little corner.
Yeah,
I'm the non-automated corner, just down here, and I know all these companies and I know roughly what they do, but it's a mysterious jungle to me.
and that's I mean, that's very very important as well, right? That everybody have, like, if you're going to have a niche expertise, that you're developing it and you're not getting spread too thin, right? So mine is really around that, right? It's really around the IT piece, coming in and looking at your existing architecture, like, what are the problems, is there middleware in there or not? What can we do from that perspective? And how do we put a roadmap around your procurement business objectives and get to an end state, and what makes the most sense first, and why, and the business case around that. And so it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm to a point where I have a good expertise to be able to help people with this, but there's also so much more to learn, right? So that's what makes it fun for me as well.
Yeah. Eddie's asking, do you think ERP companies should provide more capability?
Right. So that's a good question. And I think they are, right? They're trying to as fast as possible, but those three buckets that I discussed, right? The ERP bucket, the source to pay bucket, and the niche bucket, I feel that those are like the smaller the company, the faster they're going to be able to innovate, and the faster they're going to put out functionality, because they have less legacy code and legacy and code base.
Do they have to have relationships with the other two buckets to be able to do that?
Yeah. So
do you think that's harder for startups then?
To get those relationships? Yeah. So I think that's the key to a successful procurement startup, right? Or any technology startup aimed at B2B or B2C on the sales side, but is that openness, is the openness, but also being able to develop those relationships with the other big players, right? So if I just opened up a niche procurement solution, one of my first things on my docket is going to be, okay, how do I build up my partnerships with SAP, with Oracle, with Microsoft, with Ariba, with Ivalua, with Coupa, with Jagger, so that I have all of those integrations ready and out of the box for customers that come in and see us, whatever they're on, right? Whatever they're currently working. But to answer the question very directly, I think ERPs are trying to innovate. Like, you see it with SAP, where they're putting out an SAP cloud solution and they're trying to get the next generation of ERP out. But since it's so massive and they've got millions and millions of lines of code in that code base, they can't do it as fast as a startup, right? So what you see is the startups that make it big, or that have a real impact, they usually get bought up by one of these companies that owns the ERP, and then there's a roadmap to eventually bring them together. But it's a years long, decades long thing that to be able to do that, because of the complexity involved in the as is, right? Yeah. We often forget that ERP has been there since the 70s.
Oh yeah, we'll come back to that in a second. Hi, Karthik, how are you? Nice to see Karthik. You, gang here. And so something I see a lot of is millions, not quite millions, but lots of siloed data, different ERPs, different countries. There's still an awful lot of that going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, some of it is by design as well, right? Like, if the ideal, of course, if you're able to do it, is a single ERP and all your business units in that single ERP, right? From a data perspective. But the reality is, from a technical perspective, it's a bigger load on that system, and so you have to manage downtimes. If you've got, for example, manufacturing plants, it gets more complicated. So having different instances for different geographies can make more sense. And the other piece from a legal perspective as well, if you have different legal entities and you've got M&A activities that are coming or going, right? Having those different entities in different ERP systems makes for the M&A process a lot easier when you're either purchasing or selling a company, right? You don't have to bring them into your system and then pull them out of your system, right? So
never even thought about that.
Yeah, there's teams of people at big companies where there's a lot of M&A where they're responsible for that transition, right? If we buy a company, what do we do with it? Do we leave it in its system, or do we do a conversion and bring everything into the ERP as fast as possible?
I remember speaking to someone, and I can't remember who it was, but they're like, oh yeah, so all the ERPs feed into like a data lake or a cube or a warehouse, something. And they're like, and we know that some of the data is getting lost, but we're fine with that. And I was like, oh, like, wouldn't you be better to just give me the source data? No, it comes through the warehouse or whatever it was. I was like, but you're missing data. No, it's fine.
Yeah, and for people like us, it's like, but it's not perfect.
It's not, yeah. It's like, but it's not fine.
Yeah. But at a certain size as well, like it's a matter of margins of error as well, right? So if your data is okay within a 5% margin of error, then you're able to take decisions that you need with a certain level of certainty, right? So all of those factors, come into play as you're talking about systems. But just to add on to that ERP piece, right? And like, instead of doing the hard work of bringing a company you just acquired or business divisions that are in another system into your ERP system, if most of the spend is indirect, that's one of the value propositions of the source to pay systems, right? Is to say, put all of your spend in the source to pay system, and then the back end accounting systems will just send the different files over to, so that you have your accounting by business unit, but you're able to have that centralized view of spend in your source to pay system.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
So you can see how every time I approach a new client, a new mandate, it's always different, right? The context.
Oh yeah, but it's like a big giant puzzle. It sounds like fun.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's
sometimes you need to create pieces.
Yeah. Like just make it fit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the in a nutshell. That's what I do.
So where do you see things going over the next couple of years then?
I think to the point of having more open systems, I see a shift towards leveraging a lot more of niche procurement systems in your procurement architecture, and the procurement organizations that are going to perform the best are the ones that I'll call them will be masters of complexity, right? So I see that the process of maturity really as an open-ended funnel on both sides that becomes very narrow at the end. So you start here where you've got very unstandardized, very fragmented and different processes through your business, your different business units, and you do the hard work of bringing it to a single set of standard processes, with exceptions, of course, where they are merited. But doing that hard work of putting together a business process architecture and governing by process through different systems, right? And then when you've done that, you realize that if you've done it in two systems, like an SAP backend and an iValue source to pay system, you'll realize that there are still pain points. So you've managed to solve a bunch of big pain points, but getting to standard processes has sprouted out a whole new bunch of pain points, right? That may have a smaller impact on the overall bottom line, but they're still there and they can still be optimized, right? So from there is where you're going to open up and go to the other side of the bracket, which is complex system architectures, right? So you're going to bring in a teal book, you're going to bring in the Perangusta, you're going to bring in Assyrian Labs to do specific things for specific commodities. But you're going to have to manage that complexity to be able to get those results as well, right? So I think that's the continuum, and that's what I'm seeing in terms of the organizations that are aiming.
So basically, just give you a call.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm getting really excited because I don't know if you can see, but that's sunshine.
Ooh.
And it's hitting my balcony and my flat, which means I'm going to have a great summer.
Yeah, and I think worldwide, or at least northern hemisphere wide, summer's going to be, everybody's going to have a great summer this summer, just because we've been cooped up in our houses for, God knows how long.
Yeah.
And
don't tell anybody. But I was kind of working from home and being cooped up before.
Yeah, anyway.
So yeah,
that explains a lot too.
Go out now, make an effort.
Yeah. No, it's like, just to give you an idea, like when it was 20 degrees a couple weeks ago, I want to say like 2 Sundays ago here, and I went outside and I felt like a rebirth. I felt like a new person.
I know, like literally after this, I'm going to just stand and bathe in that sun.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
And I don't know if our immunity to sunlight is now completely zero. Like,
factor 50 for me, definitely.
Yeah, you're going to burn.
Oh yeah, I'm going to frazzle. So what about you and your business? What's your plans for the next year?
So yeah, as we were kind of discussing a bit before the call, I'm already running at like 110% of capacity, right? Which is great. It's a great problem to have. But at the same time, like I don't, because of where I am on the personal side and those personal objectives we were discussing earlier, like I'm not necessarily looking to grow this year. I just want to keep things running as is and hopefully put out some content. I know, for example, like the procurement doctor and I have a podcast to record. We've been talking about it for months.
Oh, nice.
I haven't had the time to do it, right? So that's always the question is I have a backlog. I'm getting to it when I get to it, and I'm trying to be zen with that and doing.
I'm trying to get better at saying no to things, and I've definitely with this book, I've just been point straight to people. No, I can't talk to you till April. That's
yeah.
And I've started to kind of like have like Friday afternoons for calls. So it's just like I can just chat all Friday afternoon, plan in the morning, and try and keep it to that. Because you end up with like an hour here and then an hour gap and then another 2 hours of calls, and you can't get anything done in the hour in between, because by the time you get kind of in the zone, it's time to call again. So
absolutely,
yeah, definitely working on that.
Yeah, if you're able to batch stuff, like the same tasks at a specific time during the week, and it makes sense, I think that helps a lot for sure. So it's a lot of that as well, right? Making sure that my processes are optimized from an internal perspective, right? Even if I'm a small one-man band with a couple helpers, making sure that when I do get out of I'll call it this season, right, of not wanting to grow or not wanting to do anything in that regards, because it's tied to specific things I want to do on the personal side with my kids, my growing kids, and everything like that. Well, I have the architecture and the setup to be able to press a button and say, okay, let's open the doors, and everything can scale from there, right?
Yeah. I think, there's when you've got a business, and I certainly found this before everything shut down, and even at some networking events now, it's like, oh, who's your ideal client and what's your sweet spot and where do you want to go? And it's like, you know what, you don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes it's nice to just enjoy what you have and contemplate and think about what's next. I think there's an awful lot of kind of impressions that you have to do things a certain way, and you don't.
Oh, for sure. And I think that, to go back full circle to what we started saying at the beginning, that goes to what are the values and your personal objectives that you're trying to accomplish from a professional standpoint as well, and how does everything marry together, right? Because if you're chasing growth because you think you need to be chasing growth, then that might impede on your ability to spend an hour at night with your kids, right? So I think it's it wraps up nicely our conversation too.
Yeah, definitely. I've certainly sacrificed my morning walks for work, and I'm probably not any better off for it. It's like you always think, if I just do this hour and catch up, it'll be fine. And then it's never enough, because there's always something else. So yeah, you have to just put it in the diary and make it a thing.
And I don't know if you have this problem as well, but I always underestimate the amount of time something's going to take me.
Oh,
I'm trying to work on that as well. I'm reading how to measure anything, and I'm trying to figure out like how do I apply that to like estimations and time management.
Like projects, I always kind of add on a few days to a week at least, because like 99.9% of the time, something goes wrong.
Yeah. Or you
find something in the data that's not right. You need to go back to them. Then, they're like, oh, we've sent you the wrong data. So then you got to rework some stuff. And so always.
Yeah. So you use a blanket rule.
Yeah, pretty much. At least add on at least a week, just buffer time.
Yeah.
And the worst that happens is you over deliver, under promise and over deliver. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's better than the other way around, that's for sure.
But I'm sure, well, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, so where can everybody find you? And what about things like where can they find your podcast and your blogs?
Yeah, so you can find everything at pureprocurement.ca. And I've recently actually finished the redesign of my website, so that's one thing I wanted to do over the holidays. And in the theme of what I just said, things taking more time than you think, I ended up with a very decent result at the end of the Christmas holidays, but I had like 3 or 4 little bugs that I was not satisfied with. So I took the month and a bit to take the time to fix those. So that's all done. And so when you get on the homepage, you have the articles link, you have the podcast link. I also have a monthly newsletter called the Pure Procurement Monthly, where I share my top 5 articles about procurement and procurement transformations from a digital perspective that I've come across that month. Sometimes they're my own articles as well.
Yeah, I get mine every month.
Sorry?
I get mine every month.
Oh, yeah, you're on there. Thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
Great. And otherwise, I kick around LinkedIn a lot. So you can find me on LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn. And otherwise, if you have a specific topic you want to discuss, a specific context or situation as it relates to procurement technology, give me a shout. I always like those conversations. At least they point you in the right direction, even if I can't necessarily come on and do a mandate at that specific point in time.
Yeah, I was going to say actually on your website, I've got someone rebuilding mine. That is something I am offloading now. It's like it takes so much time, and it's like you can't go on and just tweak a little bit. You end up tweaking a whole load of stuff, and then 3 days later, you've overhauled the whole thing. So
like, there's a white space here that I want to get rid of, but I don't know
how. Yeah, I want to do this. I don't know how. I'm just going to guess it. Yeah. So I am taking that trouble away from myself and giving it to someone else to deal with.
That's good.
So,
well, you'll have to let me know when it's up so we can go explore.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to catch up. All the best with the wee one.
Thank you so much.
And business for the rest of the year. And we look forward to seeing more podcasts and more blogs and more newsletters.
Thanks, Sue. I appreciate it. And talk to you soon.
Cool. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye, guys. That is it for another week. I am so close to finishing my book now. I can't wait. Next week, I'm really excited in that I have Paula from Visokio, which is the software I use to classify. She's coming on. She is going to take a data set, cleanse it, and then visualize it. And it's something that I completely know nothing about. It's football, so it should be really interesting for me as well to learn something completely different. So I hope you'll enjoy that. That's next Monday at 4. Even though it's Easter Monday, I will still be here. Thank you so much to Joelle. I hope I got that right. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.